Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for August 23rd, 2018. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the latest film and TV news and read some responses in the mailbag. This is Slash Film Editor-in-Chief Peter Sciretta, and joining me on today's podcast is Slash Film Weekend Editor Brad Oman.
Hey, that's me.
And Slash Film Writer Hoai-Tran Bui.
Hey, everyone.
Okay, guys, news has been slowing down here, and let's start off with the mailbag. Yesterday, we talked about the Duffer Brothers getting a Funko Pop, a story that Brad wrote up on the site, and we were all, theorizing on what filmmakers we would like to see as released as Funko Pop figures, and I asked readers to write in and give their suggestions, but before I go to that, Brad, I know that you probably have thought long and hard about this because you are a collector of those pops. What directors would you like to see on your shelf?
I definitely want a Steven Spielberg one. I wrote in the article when we talked about the Duffer Brothers new Funko Pop that it would be cool either to have him, in his old school style baseball caps with sunglasses and stuff from the 70s and 80s. Or to have him, wearing one of those flip caps or one of his fedoras with his jean jacket and scarf. That would be awesome.
You need to have him with the aviator, the metallic glasses. The old school, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and then I'd love to see a Scorsese one. That would be awesome. It would look pretty slick in a nice suit. Mel Brooks would be a fun one. There's a wide variety of things you could do with Mel Brooks. It would be even cool if they did a line of Mel Brooks ones from the characters he's played in all of his movies. I feel like none of the director of Funko Pop so far have given the directors much in the vein of signature prop, except for Guillermo del Toro has his book that he carries with him, and Alfred Hitchcock one was given a clapboard. But I would like to see a director have with one of those the viewfinders that directors use to set up shots and stuff. Just stuff like that, or Wes Anderson with a thing of birds, from the old American Express commercial. You guys remember that?
Yeah. I actually love that American Express commercial. And if they made a Spielberg, I think I didn't say this yesterday, but I think they should recreate that old photo of Spielberg in the mouth of Jaws.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be cool. Anyways, a bunch of readers wrote in and gave their suggestions. We actually got probably more feedback in the mailbag on this topic than any topic we've ever brought up, which probably shows the the mindset of our listeners. They want some director Funko Pop. So I'm gonna run through these very briefly, and then I'll go to you guys and see which ones of these might be of interest to you. Rob M. from Maryland said he likes to see Wes Craven Funko Pop wearing the Freddy sweater and holding a Scream mask. And I think that goes to what you were saying, Brad, of bringing in kind of the franchises or props from those franchises that the filmmakers are a part of. Jordan from Ohio suggested that he wants to see a Quentin Tarantino Funko Pop, possibly, because he has a huge forehead and the slick back brown hair and maybe wearing his Pulp Fiction black suit. I could totally see that. Colin S. from San Jose wants to see a Coen Brothers 2-pack. And also he's suggesting that we get the Three Amigos, the 3-pack with Three Amigos with Guillermo, Alejandro, and Alfonso Cuarón as a 3-pack. I would buy that in a second. That would start my Funko Pop collection if they came out with that. Eric S. From Grand Prairie, Texas, wants to see Tim Burton. He says he's distinguishable enough to have his own Funko Pop, and I agree there. Carl M. from New Zealand says Peter Jackson, and also David Lynch. I think that could be, he has a very memorable look to him. Scott A. says he has a director that we overlooked. He thinks that the next director after Alfred Hitchcock that they should be considering is Stanley Kubrick. I agree, but I'm not sure if the Kubrick family would sign off on that idea. Ivan H. suggests a Japanese master series featuring Kurosawa, Miyazaki, Takahara, that would be great. Aaron from Kentucky suggested John Carpenter. I think that could be cool. Spike Lee, Stanley Kubrick, and lastly, Josh from Charlotte, North Carolina, sent in a ton of names. I'm not going to read them all off here. I'll put them in the show notes, but among them, Clint Eastwood, Ridley Scott, Francis Ford Coppola, John Woo, James Cameron, Steven Soderbergh, Ron Howard, Woody Allen, and Ed Wood. Although I'm not sure if anybody actually knows what Ed Wood looks like. I think everybody just pictures Johnny Depp as Ed Wood. And I'm wondering if Funko, even a company like Funko, would make a Woody Allen Funko Pop at this point during, like, you know, the height of the Me Too, world. Among all the names that were listed there, HT, are there any that jump out at you that you'd want to own on your shelf?
I think I'd definitely go with a John Woo one. That would be really cool. And what else?
I'm shocked you didn't want a Miyazaki.
Oh, wait, I totally missed the Miyazaki one. Yes, Miyazaki for sure. I was zoning out a little bit because there were a lot of names. Miyazaki, definitely, is my number one pick. I would take 10 Miyazakis. That would be adorable.
I'd want him with like the little creature, like little small creatures on his like shoulders and stuff.
The Kodamo from Princess Mononoke.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. That would be so cool. Sorry, I got excited for a second.
Sled would be awesome.
Which one?
I'm sorry?
Orson Welles with a sled.
Oh yeah, that would be cool.
That would be good.
I'd get Orson Welles.
They have props.
Which of these, Brad, did spark your imagination? Is there any that you would want?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I mean, like I feel like the John Carpenter one would probably be really fun to do.
For sure. Okay, anyways, thank you all for your suggestions. You can always write us at the mailbag at peter@slashfilm.com. If you ever write in, please leave your name and general geographic location in case we mention the email on the air. But let's jump into the news, which there isn't a whole lot of, to be honest with you. It's kind of slowed down around here. But let's jump into it anyways, and let's start off with Netflix developing a Death Note sequel. HT, why?
That is the question, isn't it? So, despite abysmal reviews and a controversy about the whitewashing of the film that has sunk other blockbuster films before it, Netflix has decided to go ahead with developing a Death Note sequel, this time with Greg Russo on board to pen the film. We don't know if Adam Wingard will return to direct, but this was hidden inside a Hollywood Reporter report about the future slate of Netflix's original films, and it was kind of hidden in here where the Chief Content Officer Ted Sarandos called the first Death Note a sizable success, and that's the reason that they want to go forward with a sequel.
Is anybody interested in seeing this? I feel like people were interested in the first one and ended up being, not good. Do you think people are actually gonna? I mean, does it even matter on Netflix? No one knows what anybody is watching on Netflix. Netflix is the only ones that know. Like, even the filmmakers that work in Netflix don't know how many people have watched their movies or TV shows. Like, does it even matter? Like, couldn't they just be producing sequels of a movie? What holds them accountable for a success, anyways?
I think those are really good questions that I don't know the answer to, because I think even Netflix's chief Reed Hastings has said in response to the 13 Reasons Why backlash, nobody has to watch it, quote. So I think that they don't even care as much whether people watch it. They care if people talk about it. And Death Note did certainly get a lot of people talking, if for the wrong reason. So I don't really know if there's an audience for Death Note 2, because we don't know anything about Netflix's statistics. We don't know whether people are actually interested or liking it. I mean, we were kind of wrong with Bright, because I remember we thought that no one really liked Bright, but then people came out in defense of that film and really were looking forward to a sequel. So there's possibly just a hidden cache of hardcore Death Note fans. I'm actually a fan of the Death Note manga series and the surprisingly the Japanese live action films that were adapted from the manga series, which were incredibly campy and fun. But I just could not really get excited about the Netflix Death Note, and I think it really kind of lost the core of the manga series that made it so fun and so interesting. So yeah, I think that it might have lost the anime and manga fans as well. So I don't really know where the audience is.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But speaking of sequels, let's move on to the Top Gun sequel, Maverick. They're rounding out their casting. And Brad, you wrote an article for the site this morning talking about all the new names. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so earlier this week there were a number of younger cast members that were added, seemingly filling out what will likely be a new set of trainees going through the Top Gun flight school that we saw from the original movie. And so now we're getting to get some more older, more experienced actors in the mix. John Hamm and Ed Harris are now among the cast. We don't know who they're playing. We don't know who either of them are playing, but it's not too hard to picture them both playing the kind of characters that James Tolkien and Michael Ironside played in the original Top Gun. It's especially when it comes to Ed Harris, he's got that rough around the edges kind of superior officer feel to him. And then John Hamm could I could see him being more serious in that kind of role too, but he could also maybe be the more chill superior officer, among the group there. But that's all speculation on my part. And then Lois Pullman has also been added to a cast. He's another younger face. He's the son of Bill Pullman, and he was recently in Strangers Pray at Night. And he's also got a role in the upcoming Bad Times at the El Royale. And we don't know who he's playing either. But considering the ensemble of young actors, there's likely going to be a good ensemble of trainees who are going through training and getting shown the ropes by Tom Cruise as Maverick.
I mean, these names certainly make me more excited. Top Gun was never a movie that was one of the movies I loved growing up. I know some of my friends, it was one of their favorite films. And but these names do get me a little bit more excited for the sequel that honestly I thought we would never get. But let's move on. The review embargo for the Happytime Murders, the Brian Henson R-rated puppet film noir movie, it's coming out this week, and the first reviews hit the web last night, and people hate it. So HD, you did a roundup of all the early buzz. What did people say?
So several critics called the Happytime Murders one of the worst releases of the summer, if not of the year. IndieWire, Screen Crush, and Vanity Fair all sort of repeated that sentiment. And a few other critics were a little bit kinder, but were mostly still pretty brutal on this film. There's only one or two positive reviews, one of which is from IGN, which says that the puppeteering and clever screenplay make a statement, and another is from Jeff Snyder, who is a reporter in the Hollywood scoop business, who says that it was a R-rated puppet comedy, and that's kind of what you get with the premise. But most people called it tasteless, not unfunny. IndieWire calls it an admirably debased but deeply unfunny puppet noir that opens with a porn-addicted bunny getting his head blown off. So it's a very unpopular film, and definitely one of the more sort of brutal takedowns we've seen of films this year.
Yeah, I am so shocked to see this because I saw this film earlier this week, and I will say I was excited to see this film, and it was disappointing, but I thought it was fun, even though it's kind of disposable and shallow. I think the world the movie creates is kind of interesting, and I would have loved to have seen more done there. Maybe that's a, backhanded insult to the film, but or a negative. But I don't know. I just don't see this as the worst movie of the year. So I wanted to ask you guys what you thought the worst movies you have seen thus far this year. Let's start with you, Brad.
So I've actually done a pretty good job of avoiding a lot of really bad movies, just because, normally I'll go out of my way to see them just so I can have my own opinion, and because I want to see how bad some of them really are after the reviews start rolling in. But this year I haven't really gone out of my way to do a lot of that. And so I feel like the worst movie that I've seen is probably Rampage, which I thought was just stupid and ridiculous and nowhere near as fun as it should have been. And I didn't really enjoy watching it very much. And I was just just a total whatever to me. I know that it's probably not the worst movie of the year because there's things out there like.
Wait, you also went to Sundance. You must have seen something worse than Rampage at Sundance.
No, honestly, no, I didn't. I actually had a really good Sundance this year. Like, even the movies that I wasn't super keen on, I wouldn't say they were worse than Rampage.
And by that, I want to clarify myself here. I go to Sundance every year. We see, 20 movies or something like that. And generally you end up seeing one or two movies that are like really, really bad. When you're, rolling the dice and going to a movie based on almost nothing, the title, the people in it, one sentence plot synopsis, you don't know what you're going to get. And usually the result, sometimes, I'd say like
even the couple movies that like I didn't enjoy much at Sundance and like, I wouldn't say that they were the worst movie of the year or worse than Rampage. And I'm sure that movies like Action Point and Show Dogs are significantly worse than the Happytime Murders. So
yeah, I would have to think so. And I do want to add on to what you said. I used to be one of those people that wanted to see everything early on and be, to discover movies that were great. And now as I'm getting older, I'm finding myself more content on, not being at that first screening. And, if it's something that I'm not super excited about, waiting to hear the buzz, from reviews and, film Twitter and just seeing what people are saying and going my time. I'm finding my time to be more valuable, I guess, and I'm investing it more wisely. This year I saw a bunch of bad movies. I'm not sure what the worst was, but Rampage was one of them. Cloverfield Paradox was another. Pacific Rim Uprising, Skyscraper, A Wrinkle in Time, sadly. HT, what about you?
Yeah, I haven't actually seen that many movies that I would say were outright terrible. Some of the movies I kind of agree with you, where I watched them, like A Wrinkle in Time, maybe like, Cloverfield Paradox, Tomb Raider, where I was more just like disappointed and kind of left a little numb, but nothing that I had like a strong reaction to. Although except maybe like Brad, Rampage, and probably this is going to be a very unpopular one, Ready Player One. Me, which I know. I mean, I was willing to give it a chance because, I hated the book so much and I was like, maybe the movie will be better. And it was better than the book, but it was bad in a different way in that it felt like it was assaulting my senses in a way that was just like a visual overstimulation, and it felt very just like cacophonous and not uninteresting to me. When there's just too much going on screen, too much information, I just felt myself just zoning out half the time. And I think that was kind of the worst thing for me, is that it was just doing so much and left me feeling so little.
Yeah, and there's there's I was looking at some list of what people think are the worst movies of the year, and on those lists are a bunch of the movies we mentioned: Truth or Dare, Sherlock Gnomes, Gotti, which I don't think any of us have seen, Winchester, Death Wish, Overboard. Brad, did you see Overboard?
No, it did not look good to me.
I Feel Pretty, which is actually from the trailers. I wanted to see it, but I heard so many bad things about it that I just did not even try. But yeah, so the Den of Thieves and what was that new Mark Wahlberg movie?
Oh, Mile 22.
Mile 22. It was funny. David Elric actually opened his Happytime Murders review up with an apology to Mark Wahlberg and Peter Berg because he called that the worst movie of the year, and just a week later he had to apologize and say that he was wrong. So I thought that was funny. Anyways, I'm curious if you guys out there have seen any really bad movies this year that came out this year that we have not mentioned. And if we have not mentioned it, then it's probably not on our radar. I want to know what was the worst movie you saw this year that, is out of this batch.
I'm sure there's a bunch of Netflix movies that we're not even thinking about too.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Well, Cloverfield Paradox qualifies as that for sure. But yeah, so send us your picks to peter@slashfilm.com, and if they're interesting, we'll read them on a future edition of the podcast. But let's move on to our next topic in this news discussion, and that is Wonder Woman 1984 has announced their composer. Brad, tell us about it.
Yeah, it's a pretty exciting, I think, upgrade in my opinion. The original score for Wonder Woman was pretty solid. I enjoy the theme, but that came from the Batman vs Superman introduction of Wonder Woman. But Rupert Gregson-Williams still did a pretty good job making a solid score for it. But for Wonder Woman 1984, we're getting Hans Zimmer, who is probably best known for providing the score for all the Christopher Nolan Batman movies. And having him on board is definitely, I think, going to make this movie even more epic than the first one. Hans Zimmer just has a way with his orchestral arrangements that has really brought a lot of life to DC movies. And he's really just one of the best, composers out there. Like, Hans Zimmer is among the household names that you hear when people know people who have scored movies, among the likes of John Williams and things like that. So
yeah, and
I'm really excited to hear what he does.
His score for The Dark Knight, I think, is still one of my favorites of all time. So if he could bring even a tenth of that to Wonder Woman, I would be happy. HT, how do you feel about this news? I know you're a big Wonder Woman fan.
I'm excited. I remember Zimmer was the one who composed Wonder Woman's first sort of "Is She With You" introduction theme, and they reused that for Wonder Woman, and maybe they'll kind of reimagine it for Wonder Woman 1984, which I'm very excited for. Perhaps a few more electric guitars. Oh, I'm excited for him to sort of tap into maybe the synth of 80s music and see if he plays with that a little bit.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. That would be fantastic. I am so excited. Okay, let's move on from a DC movie to the DC universe, and I'm not talking about DC EU or whatever it's called. I'm talking about this new online service that's kind of like the Netflix for DC. They're going to launch their own daily show hosted by Kevin Smith. Ichi, you wrote this up for the site. What do we know?
Yes, so DC Universe, which is the digital subscription service launching soon, is going to be launching its own daily show called DC Daily, which will provide fans with superhero news, guest appearances, interviews, and panel discussions about all things DC Comics and its several titles and TV shows. And the first host for this daily show will be Kevin Smith. He won't be hosting the entire series, but he'll be kicking off the launch of the show with a inaugural live stream beginning on August 29th. So that will be kind of him introducing what the show is about, as well as the new 2,100 square foot set that they've built for the show at the Warner Brothers Digital Networks location in Burbank.
I don't know, guys. I love that we live in a world that these comic book companies are getting their own Netflix services. Like, that to me is exciting. But do we really need a daily DC news show? And I know this is like a little hypocritical. It's coming from the guy that hosts, and we publish a daily movie news show. But we don't even have a bit of DC news on every episode. Like, is there enough there?
I mean, if you combine all of the news with comics, TV, movies, I think it's possible. And it seems also they'll be changing things up with panels and celebrity guests. So I think they could do something. I mean, I don't think they'll have an audience that tunes in every day. It seems to be something that's more just kind of like something that shows up every now and then and maybe goes viral once in a while, but I don't think it'll have like a huge impact. It's just kind of like a hub for all DC Comics news.
I don't know. I feel like you're being optimistic about this. Like, I watch nice. Every week the Star Wars show happens every Wednesday on YouTube, and I feel like that's a great example. It's a 10 to 15 minute show produced by Disney and Lucasfilm, and it does a great job on a weekly basis. But I couldn't even imagine that more than on a weekly basis. Brad, is a DC daily show something that you would even entertain watching?
I mean, me personally, no, simply because I'm not invested in much of the stuff that's going on with DC right now. I don't watch any of the Arrowverse shows. I might, give the Titans and Doom Patrol shows and whatnot a chance, but then I would have to pay for DC Universe, and it's not something that I'm too keen on signing up for at this point in time. But like, I can't argue with the fact that like there's so much happening with DC properties every day that like having a daily news show to cover all the stuff, whether it's comics, TV shows, movies, streaming service stuff, like there's always plenty going on. And Marvel has had their own, YouTube show for a while too, where they recap the same kinds of things happening. And DC has actually kind of done this on YouTube for a little while. It wasn't quite the same kind of production, but they have this thing called DC All Access on YouTube where it's usually like 10 to 15 minute things where they talk about a bunch of different things happening with DC characters and properties and stuff. So this just seems like more of an upgrade where they're trying to follow in the footsteps of all the post shows that have been on AMC and also like Beyond Stranger Things on Netflix and stuff like that.
I don't know. Maybe it's just that it's DC. Like, I'm trying to think, if Marvel was doing this, would I be more excited? Would I be, putting it on my list?
It's no different than the Star Wars show either, I mean,
but the Star Wars show is weekly, though. Like,
that's true. I don't, but Star Wars also doesn't have nearly as many comic books or shows or things like that they're juggling.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll have to see. It'll be interesting when Disney launches their streaming service if they're gonna present more content like regarding like Marvel and Star Wars, if that's going to be expanded in a big way. We'll have to see. But we have reached the end of the news, guys. Congratulations. Brad, where can we find more of your work online?
There's a website called slashfilm.com that I hear you should check out. I write some stuff over there from time to time. You can also check me out on Twitter at Ethan_Anderton, and also my podcast, Go Flix Yourself, which is full of stupid laughs and profanity and chatter about movies.
HG, where can we find more of your work online?
I'm also every day at slashfilm.com, and I'm on Twitter at Haai-Tran Bui.
You can find me at SlashFilm on all social media. You can find this podcast published every weekday on slashfilm.com and all the popular podcast apps. Please feel free to send us your feedback, questions, comments, concerns. Peter at slashfilm.com. Leave your name and general geographic location in case we mention the email on the air. Please go rate and review this podcast on iTunes. Tell your friends, spread the word, and we will see you tomorrow.